Thank you, Taras. All right, next up on the agenda, we have the real Slim Shady himself, Mr. Tim Herback. Of course, now we like to call him Slim Herback. He's going to be talking to us about the CalPERS enhancements.
Hello, everyone. How goes things? So for many of you, this presentation is probably going to be a mirror image of what I presented at the Ed Forum. But for some of you who did not have the opportunity to attend the Ed Forum, shame on you. Shame on you. Go next year because it's a blast. This is going to be new information that is old. So I want to go over some of the CalPERS enhancements that we've implemented over the last 6 months, and also talk about some of the new functionality or future enhancements that we are looking at potentially doing between the spring and early summer of next year. We call these different enhancements in basically 4 different buckets. We have the general domain, we have our payroll reporting domain, retirement domain, and financials domain. And like I said, I'll go over some future enhancements. So within the general domain, there wasn't a lot of system changes that we made over the last 6 months. I think the 2 most important things, and I'll actually show an image of these, were the participant undeliverable report, as well as the document history modifications we've made. So the changes we had were specific to the participant undeliverable report. These modifications went in effect on August 12th, and they actually now display anybody who you have as a participant that either has a marked undeliverable address, which means we've sent them some type of correspondence and it got bounced back to us because their address was not identifiable. That report only provided those types of participants in years past, but now we also include participants who have no address on file. How we have people who are in the PERS retirement plan that have 0 address on file, I do not know. I know our system up until recently, I think we actually have and I'll go over a little bit more in the enrollment process, but we didn't require an address. That means these people never got our, hey, welcome to CalPERS letter. And they never got any of the board elections, they never got any other correspondence. So what we're asking employers to do is basically run this report quarterly if you can, just to identify, do you have staff who have no address? And then update the address, because participants who are actively employed cannot update their address on their own. They can't go through MSS. The only time we'll allow a participant to update their address is if they're a retiree. So we ask that you kindly please do this, because that way our membership unit will quit getting boxes and boxes and boxes and boxes and boxes of undeliverable mail. The other thing we did is doc history. There were a bunch of complaints our call center received in regards to notices, documents, letters that you would find in doc history. And if you don't know what doc history is in CalPERS, I'm assuming someone in your office does. It basically is where we store all the documents that you either uploaded or sent to us, or we've sent and generated to you. And in some cases, there are documents we know we are still working to fix, some triggers that aren't working very well. And we would get this document that didn't make sense, and you would see and you're like, what is this? I have no clue what they're asking for. And you would call the call center, and the call center would like, we don't see what you're seeing. It's because between the hours of midnight and 8 a.m., we didn't run the batch job to hide these statuses, and so somehow you guys were there really early in the morning looking at these things. So we actually updated the statuses so you won't have it anymore. So here's an image of the participant undeliverable report, kind of going back to that. We do have a version of this on our website, so if you want to see what the data elements are, instead of having to like squint to see it, you can go to our CalPERS website where we have all our Cognos reports in PDF. If you haven't gone to our website, I recommend you do, because you can see all the information that we can send. And then here is a copy of the doc history that I was just talking about. It's on your left-hand link, and so right now you'll just see anything that has either in the generated, which means we sent it to you. Valid basically means that you provided it to us, and we can identify exactly what it is. Some of you like to send us things on bar tabs and notes and paper towels or whatever. We can't confirm that, so we won't mark those as valid, but these are truly valid documents that you probably got off our web, filled out, and uploaded into our system. And then we also have distributed, which are system generated based on some kind of action. The unused sick leave, education leave, or the person on roll letters are the most common when they enter retirement. All right, So here comes the fun part. This is my weakest part of the presentation because I have been a little bit removed from the payroll reporting process, but I'll try to do justice to our payroll teams and kind of go over some things. In July 19th of this year, we actually made some changes to the retroactive special compensation business rules. For the transaction type of retro special comp, the pay rate type and pay rate cannot be reported. So all we have to do now is just give us the begin and end date and tell us what the special compensation amount is. I know some of you, the pay rate would be 0, and I think the pay rate type is not defined. Now, we have received calls when you're trying to make negative retro special compensation adjustments to historically posted transactions, and you're doing what we told you to do through the circular letter. I think circular letter 200-021-17 was the one where we talked about this new business rule. And you're like, Tim, per the circular letter, you said don't include pay rate, and now it's erroring out. Well, that reason why is because whenever you do a negative adjustment, we have to have the exact match in order to reverse that transaction. The system has to go find something and change it. And if you gave us a pay rate and pay rate type, in 2012, and you're trying to reverse that out, you have to include that pay rate and pay rate type in order for us to find it and reverse it out. There is new functionality also that I'll go down a little later in this presentation. I think it'll make it a lot easier for you to reverse those. But if you're doing it through file submission or you're manually creating a new adjustment report and you're doing a negative RSC transaction for a historical period of time, that's the only time that you can include pay rate and pay rate type. Additional payroll validations that went into our July release with the implementation of PEPRA, as you all know, the employer paid member contribution, so that's tax deferred employer paid member contribution bucket. If you utilize that, it's prohibited for PEPRA participants. So some of you, in looking at your payroll, I know this by looking at some of the transactions, have ignored that request not to report PEPRA people in that bucket. And so you have been, and we're just letting you know in July, you probably started receiving errors because you shouldn't have been for PEPRA people. If you did have an MOU on file, we would have given you that wasn't impaired, then we would have also aired it out. However, you did have an impaired MOU that hasn't, and this is important, I even bolded it here on my little notes, hasn't been amended, extended, renewed, or expired. That's the only time you can do the EPMC as member paid for PEPRA participants. Once one of those things happen, you'll start to get an error message. And I think we're over 5 years, so most of those cases are going to start erroring out now. So just be cognizant of your employer paid member contributions. In August 12th of 2017, we also changed the retroactive salary adjustment validation. RSA records reported for one period, but earnings represent multiple periods. There's going to be a new error. And what we mean by this and how I kind of explained it in the past at the Ed Forum was you could have a pay rate of, say, $10, using Taras as an example, and then all of a sudden the board finally rubber stamped that approval for a raise going back to January. And so the new raise is maybe $15 an hour. So you'll give us $15 and you try to report the lump sum for January till maybe say June, right? Well, I would assume it's going to be $5 the difference of between January, February, March, and April, May, June. But when you submit the payroll record, you give us a June 1st, June 31st end date with the total difference there. And so we can clearly do the math that the total difference is not for 1 month, it should be for 5 months. Those were going through and they were causing a lot of issues for our compensation review team when we were looking at the determinations of how this, it looked like basically an earnings spike when you had this huge lump sum for just one pay period. And so now we're erroring those out. So if you do want to do retro special comp and retro salary adjustments as a span, please make sure you do the beginning and end dates for the periods that it represents. My personal recommendation, and I've talked to a few of you this, is to stop spanning. I know it was a very nice thing back when we implemented with my CalPERS, but when you span retros, it causes more problems than if you were to submit it like we did in the old legacy days, just one pay period by pay period. You avoid the increase in pay rates, you avoid the change in fiscal years, you avoid the gaps of time that a person may or may not work. It's easier if you do it pay period by pay period. But if you elect to do span, you still can. Just know that there could be potentials for errors. Okay, also in August, some of you may have safety classifications. So the FLSA is only reportable for PEPRA participants. Now, some of you I know have reported, and other agencies were reporting FLSA for PEPRA miscellaneous participants. Maybe a dispatcher who you thought was working in the realm of a safety classification. For schools, I know school police is like the only people who should be doing this because it's safety only, but for some of you, you may have done your miscellaneous FLSA, and we just had pension compensation regs put in place last month. Yeah, as of October. It clearly will define that FLSA is only for PEPRA safety members. So Classic's okay, PEPRA safety only. All right, then last but not least, I'm hopeful to show you some screenshots of the maintain payroll records page, but if you're not aware of this left-hand nav, I think it's going to blow your minds. I did have people at the Ed Forum, mostly some of our smaller public agencies, who are really struggling to do negative adjustments, and especially for one participant. So how to do this, and I'll kind of show you the screenshots. And I'm going to do it real quickly. I did choose a city in this example who had multiple appointments for the same concurrent time period. But this is a great opportunity for you to say, I have to do a whole bunch of corrections for one person. The district or the county office just made a mess of this ordeal, and so we have to clean it up for maybe a couple years. So what you can now do is you'll select the participant in the CalPERS ID, you can see on the very top. You can apply filters if you want, fiscal years or earned periods. You can also identify the appointment if they have concurrent appointments for the same fiscal year. And then what you'll do is you'll select all the earned periods that you want to correct. And what you're looking to do now is basically start from scratch. You're taking data on a whiteboard, erasing it all off, and starting over again. So what it'll do is it'll tee up everything that you selected. It'll show you what the reportable earnings, special comp, scheduled full times. It gives you all the data you need. And at this point, basically, it'll say, what do you want this to now reflect? If you were to wipe off this person's earnings off the whiteboard, tell us exactly what should be the correct value when all things are said and done. It doesn't make a difference that you did an EPR transaction and 25 different PPA transactions for the same pay period. Let's forget all that. Tell me what it should be. And so what we'll do is we'll sum every transaction you did before, we'll redo the reversal transaction for you, you tell us what the positive is, and then we'll post the positive. So it's a good way of saying, give me the zero, let me start fresh. We also now, with the September release, before I guess we didn't break out the special compensation types that were found within these transactions, but if you have to do just a special compensation adjustment, we'll allow you to do that as well. And then once the report is generated, again, I selected 2 records, right? We have 4 records in the report, 2 of your negatives, 2 of your positives. You can also rename the report. I think at first we did some kind of arbitrary CalPERS correction name, and you were like, that's not our name. I don't want to name that. I want to name this participant's name. So you can actually update the report name if you like, and I believe that's going forward as well. And at this point, you can either process the report, you can generate the report summary, you can view records or correct posted records. In addition to one person, I believe this functionality allows you to, because it is a report, if you view records, you can add people. Maybe you have an additional line that you know you want to do instead of creating its own adjustment report. You can just throw this person in this report as well. Once you get to this stage, it's like no other payroll. It's just nothing different than any other payroll report you have. You can basically do everything you can with your normal reports. All right, moving on to retirement. So we made some changes and we made a lot of headway in the retirement enrollment realm. First and foremost, we made a change to the PEPRA to Classic notifications. Matter of fact, we now notify you as of July when an employer makes a change to an appointment that changes it from Classic to PEPRA, and the change causes the member's other appointments with other agencies to change from Classic to PEPRA as well, or vice versa. We will actually, and I'll show you a copy of this letter and a slide coming forward, notify both the member and the employers, impacted employers, that a change has been made. What was their initial PEPRA status? Were they Classic or PEPRA? And what was their formula? This has been something that's kind of brewing up lately because our team is doing a lot of the retirement appointment reconciliation. A lot of the separations we're making, we are now finding that we have an increase in cases where a person had a Classic membership, and because you're going back and cleaning up all these appointments, there should have been PEPRA this whole time. And so employers generally were like all up in arms. You guys were like, Tim, this is horrible. You didn't tell us ahead of time. Now we got to reverse out 20 lines of payroll. Well, as soon as this happens, until, you don't have to wait till payroll errors out. You'll get a notice. It should, I believe, sent to the general primary contact, I believe, to say this person's changed. And that way you can know before you start to submit that next payroll that also payroll adjustments are made. In addition, members who are flagged as felony forfeitures, hopefully you have no felons in your list, but if you do, or you try to hire a felon, a message will be displayed letting you know that this person is ineligible for PERS retirement. So, yeah, we'll let you know. The updates apply to enrollments only for new appointments or appointment changes of either separation or leave. So we'll give you a little message that this person's a felon. There are some new CalPERS, CalSTRS election screens, and I'll kind of show it to you as well as some reciprocity. A member's entire employment history, including reciprocal periods, will be used to determine the member's enrollment into PEPRA or Classic. In addition, there will be updates to some information on the panel, which I'll show you here in a second. So here's the letter, as I mentioned. It just says, hey, hi Hugh, you're changing. You thought you were Classic with a really beautiful formula. You're not, you're PEPRA, sorry. CalSTRS, CalPERS right of election, if you haven't already done this, and I'm going under the assumption that all of you do your enrollments online. For those of you who do file submission, I've talked to like Vina, for example. If you do file submission, there is no element to say this is CalPERS, CalSTRS, or there is, but there's no ability for you to upload a document. From what I understand is you'll continue doing your enrollments online or through file submission like you normally do, and at a later time, generally the district will send you the necessary paperwork, and that's when you'll go into the person's appointment, modify it, and upload the necessary documents. So if you are doing a lot of these CalPERS, CalSTRS right of election, I have this screenshot backwards, but if you do these and you have documents, just know you have to upload the documents through the actual My CalPERS page. And then for reciprocity, like I mentioned, we have the reciprocal member indicator, yes, no, which all of you probably are familiar with. But now we also provide you most recent reciprocal agency date, earliest qualifying reciprocal membership date, most recent permanent separation date, was this person retired and did they refund? And then I believe there's another page once you save to upload a specific document as necessary. So those are some of the changes to the retirement enrollment pages. Yeah, I don't want to get ahead of myself here. How am I doing on time, by the way? I know you said I have like 40 hours. Good? Okay.
You're good.
All right, my CalPERS. Now, Fino, our financial office wanted me again to talk to you. They asked me kindly to remind you that Circular Letter 200-044-17 mandated EFT payments for your PERS contributions. They also sent out a new one saying it's also mandated now for your health contributions. So at this time, if you're not already doing EFT, you should be. If you are sending in checks, your name is on Santa's naughty list. I know this because Fino has contacted me saying, how do we call these naughty people? So please start doing EFT. And that went in effect on July 2019. But that being said, you know, I think we've made a number of changes, and I don't have the screenshots here, to our payment process. I showed them at the Ed Forum. We've basically taken all the different avenues for which you can get to our payments page, made it more streamlined, improved the payment page. For those of you who do EFT, we've noticed that some of you like to pay twice. I don't know why. Your health billing, you know, someone would submit an EFT and the next day another person would submit another EFT for the same amount, and so you didn't know you're double paying. Our new page actually shows you that there's a pending EFT transaction. It'll actually have you confirm, is this what you truly intend to pay, and do you know you're paying over your receivable? And there's also a nice little beautiful invoice that is supposed to be for checks. But what I've been asked, or what I've been told from many employers, is that they like to take something and put it in a file or send to their controller or send to their accounting agency. My recommendation is select check first, grab that beautiful invoice because it says everything you want to pay, and then you can give that to your controller or financial office, and then start the process again to do your EFT. If you haven't seen that new invoice, please look at it. I personally designed it. I think it's wonderful. All right, retirement appointment reconciliation. This is the team that I just left, by the way. Jamel, I do have here, if you guys have ever talked to Jamel or Adam, they are the staff that I left. They are going to be your point contacts moving forward for any of this retirement appointment reconciliation efforts. So in our July release as well, we actually created some new appointment reconciliation pages. We started for this fiscal year creating receivables per earn period per rate plan. Instead of that rolling balance, one receivable per rate plan, you now have one for each earn period. Kind of made the screens a little bit more cumbersome, but it definitely helps for accounting purposes, and I'll show you some of these pages. And then our September release, some of you have asked to allow your districts to confirm missing payroll. As long as a district has the payroll read write role or read only role, they can now go in and use the old way of confirming payroll. They cannot use the pay schedule process, and I'll go that. Only Employers who report payroll can see your payroll schedules, so mostly that's the county offices. You guys have a beautiful tool that allows you to do a whole bunch of people. Your districts still have to do one by one. Let me just see. Do I have it? Oh, nope, I don't have those pages. So I didn't bring those pages to you, but I do want to let you know that we do have some enhancements that are there. If you're not already aware of those pages, they're all through your billing and payment summary page. Like I said, if you want to go on each of your rate plans, there should be a view link that'll take you to these 3 new additional pages that'll show you who we found missing, who we may project on, who you can confirm. For the county offices, if you now go through your payroll schedule and I show this, you'll see a nice little view link on the right-hand side. You can now see everybody once your payroll has been reported that you didn't account for, and you can select all and confirm those. One of the things I would like to say is that our recommendation moving forward is for all of you to start submitting payroll on the 25th or earlier. You have 30 days, but do it 25 days or sooner. And that gives you a 5-day window to basically look at everybody who you did not account for. Because starting very soon, in the beginning of next year, our financial office will start billing you employer and member contributions on anybody who you haven't accounted for, making the assumption that if you reported payroll for them the prior month, you probably should be reporting payroll for them this month. And we all know schools, you guys have subs, you have seasonals, you have people that come and go. This is the best way, is within that 5-day window, go pay schedules, let me see everybody I missed, yes, I'm good, confirm. In addition, we like to ask the county offices for the months of June and July, those are your summer months. Most likely the people probably didn't work for 90% of the cases. To help your districts out, just select all confirm for the summer months, because there's no need to have them have this huge laundry list of people that only have one missing pay period, especially if it's July, right? So help your districts out, go in and confirm your summer months. So that all being said, let's see who our winners are. So like I said, back in 2015, we had 0 employers who had all their appointments. We had 450,000 appointments unresolved. In March, we went up to 365, and as of November, we are now at 755. I have a bet. I need all you guys to help me win this bet. I have a bet that by June, I'm going to be over 1,000 employers. I think that's very reasonable. I mean, if you see our growth over the time, we were at 755. I only need 245 more. So please get your districts involved. Get these 230,000 people separated. Who are my award winners? Kudos, the claps. Hey, you did a great job. LAUSD, you're still number 1. I think you cheated. Then Sac Unified School District is the next one for the total appointments resolved. We have Fresno Unified, Modesto, Bakersfield, Anaheim, Kern, Napa, Corona, and Saddleback. As you can see, most of these are school districts. Where are my county offices at? All right, separated, we also have the volume Riverside County Schools, thank you, Orange County Schools. These are all your confirmed, or your top confirmed.
Do you see percentages of cleaned up versus appointments? Those are just your biggest offenders.
No, these are actually people who've done something. These are my positive people, my winners.
Not all of our counties are cleared. I count COE. We didn't have that many to resolve.
Yeah.
Actually, I apologize. The left is the districts, the right is the schools. So the county office, who are top people who confirmed by all districts, are on the right. I still think LAUSD cheated. But Riverside, Orange County, Los Angeles, Kern, Sacramento, Fresno, Ventura, San Bernardino, and Sonoma, you have the most districts, including yourself, who've confirmed. And then these are the separated. So again, the one on the left is our divisions. So those are all your school districts, our top winners. On the right is the county offices who have been working with their county districts. So kudos to everybody who's on this list. You know who I don't see on this list is Sonoma and Stanislaus. Oh, way down there in the very bottom. Made the list. I have to pick on Ramona because I told her I would at the Ed Forum. All right, future enhancements. Future enhancements, we are going to be monitoring system contacts. So these are all things that real quickly I want to tell you are going to be implemented sometime next year. When, I do not know. So sometime between March and July, these things may, hopefully, keep my fingers crossed, be implemented. First and foremost, monitoring contacts. Many of you are not monitoring your contacts. How do I know this? Because I ask you, who is this person? You tell me they haven't worked there for 4 years. Why are they listed as your contact? I have no idea. But please, we ask you, start monitoring your contacts. Get rid of anybody who's not there. Matter of fact, we're going to be making pages that show you who created this contact, who last updated their roles, what roles were last updated, and if you have to move somebody from an enrollment position to a payroll position for a 6-month window, we'll even allow you to plug in that time, and after that 6-month window, that person will have that role revoked. So hopefully that'll help you manage these contacts a little bit quicker. Retirement enrollments. Duplicate appointments. For some reason, some of you guys like to enroll and have the person right next to you also enroll the same exact person on the same exact date. Don't know why? You do. Matter of fact, we also have people who like to enroll people in 2050. I have no idea either why you're enrolling somebody that soon. But we are going to start warning you if there's a duplicate appointment found. And what that basically means is, does anybody have an active appointment for you at that district within a 60-day window? If it does, it'll say, hey, are you sure you want to create this new appointment? And you can say, yes, I am sure, Tim, quit asking me and call it a day. If not, you can just stop the enrollment and we'll notify you. Also, we're going to stop preventing new enrollments in inactive organizations. What does that mean? You have a charter school. They're up, they're down, they go away. Why do you still enroll these people at charter schools that are no longer in existence? I have no idea. But we will prevent you from enrolling these people. And also, as I said previously, the address is going to be required. So today it's not required. We wish that you would start adding it for every single enrollment, but going forward it is going to be a requirement. And then for those of you who have health, anybody have health? Real quick, show of hands, health. All right, today, very cumbersome process, right? To see your health billing roster, it's like a 9-step process. I tested it out. You had to go through so many clicks, pain. So now what we did is I asked, because I feel your pain, I put it on a left-hand nav, so you quickly get to the billing roster without having to go through those 9 clicks. I think that's going to be implemented in January. That's the more sooner one. The other ones are a little bit further off. So those are some future enhancements. That's all I have. Questions? Do I have time for questions?
Yes, you have time for questions, and we actually have one that was emailed to us. They want to know where they can find the ACH authorization form to set up ACH payments rather than EFT. We have an example of the form from our recent user conference for our accounting software, but we have been able to locate the form. I guess they've emailed some folks for help, but they haven't heard back yet.
So doing EFT payments outside of my CalPERS is a little bit more of a cumbersome process. I've had a number of employers ask me this. Unfortunately, that is not my area of expertise. What I have been told from the financial office, especially their assistant division chief, is that if you are looking to do ACH, contact the call center and ask to speak to the financial office, because they have to walk you through some additional steps and give you some additional information. I think if you go also to the My CalPERS site and just type in ACH, not the My CalPERS site, the CalPERS website, and type in ACH, there is a publication. I could be wrong, but my recommendation is just call and ask to speak to our financial office. Because even if you find the form, I think there's other steps that need to be required. It's kind of outside my realm of expertise. Yes. Oh, no.
Lena from San Bernardino County. On the retirement enrollment for the duplicate appointment validation, we also do an upload. So will it stop our actual upload file? Or would it be if the upload's already in, they have an appointment and then somebody tries to key it in? Because we currently do have a huge issue with this because we've already added, but then they're also included in our upload file.
So the problem with file submitters is that you do not get an error message. And right now, payroll is the only IA, and I call it IA because that's an interface, that we provide you an exception report or an error report. We don't do that for retirement or health enrollments. So for you, unfortunately, these people still go through. My recommendation would be is after every file submission to run the participant appointment details report and then just filter by the appointments or people. And if you see duplicate appointments, that's the only way to identify it. So I would have your IT team run that report weekly to identify anybody who has multiple appointments at the same district that are active. And then know that within 60 days, if you're not reporting payroll for those people, they're going to pop up on my retirement appointment reconciliation report for you to take care of later. So yeah, there's not a real easy way for file submitters. Yes.
Hi, my name is Faith Marty Kroger, and I'm from San Mateo County. Our software vendor is currently working on enabling vendor EFT payments, but they're not quite ready yet. And they're not going to make the January 2018 requirement to submit EFT payments for the health. And we've requested a waiver, but we have not heard back yet, and I'm just wondering what the status of those waiver requests are.
She left. So again, I don't see a is anybody here from our financial office? No. Send me an email.
Okay.
Do you have my email address?
No, but I'll be
All
sure
right,
to get it.
it's
before.
Tim.
Oh, hold on.
Real quick, get a pen. Tim, Tim Herback, HERR, B as in boy, ACK, at calpers.ca.gov. And I'll work with our assistant division chief because I know this isn't the first time I've had an employer ask me what the status is, and I have to keep escalating things.
Anna, Riverside County. For the duplicate appointments, can CalPERS help us merge those? If we report under two different appointments and there really should only be one, can your team help us merge them into one?
If payroll has been reported underneath both, and say for instance you had January, February on one and March on the other, and then May, our payroll team, we do have the process internally to help merge those. I would just reach out to the payroll office. I guarantee you what they're going to say is you probably should just back out payroll through your normal adjustment transaction process and then re-report. However, if you know like it's many years of offset, they do have functionality that allows you to move all over to one appointment so you can delete it. And if push comes to shove, you can also reach out to Jamel and his team because they have the same functionality to do it. I would say though, if you have like hundreds of people like this, then it's best to probably do some kind of payroll adjustment. But if you have one or two and it's pretty comprehensive, then you can work with us and we can help you with that.
Okay, one more question. On the projected contribution invoice that is going to be effective next year, currently, if you click on that field, it will take you to the appointments that need confirmation, I believe, but it doesn't allow you to download a report in Excel. Would that be available? I mean, what we foresee, we're hoping that we don't have to pay any projected contributions, but I can see there may be one or two districts that don't confirm appointments that we may have to potentially pay contributions on that. I want to be able to invoice each district.
Okay, so is anybody again here from our financial office? Because I'm about to sell them out. No. Our team, Jamel and I, sat on a board and said we need to export to Excel functionality when this was all implemented. And they said, why? Because you can technically take that page, copy and paste it, and paste it in there and do it yourself. That's not user-friendly. I know that. So what I'm saying is, as of today, if you need to do that, especially if you go to the payroll schedule page, copy and paste the entire HTML, throw it into Excel. We do have an SCR that we are working for. I believe it actually just got picked up for what we call JAR sessions, design requirement sessions. And so the export to Excel functionality is one of our business requirements we have in that SCR. So hopefully sometime next year, the export to Excel option will be there. But in the meantime, you're going to have to do what our financial office said, is just copy your page. Again, I'm selling them out because they're not here.
Hi, Tim. This is Carol Lees from Butte College. Questions on a couple areas. One is back on the maintain payroll records that allows you to pull the individual and make those corrections, kind of like an individual adjustment report. What's the impact for a receivable? So when you finish that and click on go, you could either owe more money or be due a refund. If you owe more money, does it create a new period as far as when that adjustment is due? And if you're making adjustments to somebody that would create a credit, does that appear so that you can include that, on your next?
Are you talking once we start projections or now?
No, not projections, but corrections.
Okay.
Yeah, so when you went over that area where you can pull up an individual and look back at a year and say, oh, I'm going to adjust this one individual's records for
The
something.
payroll, left-hand payroll side.
Yeah.
So that's just like if you were to create an adjustment report today. So yes, if instead of having you manually create an adjustment report and that receivable, it's not going to create its own receivable. What it'll do is it'll post the current open receivable for the regular earned period. Right, so the receivable that's created for, say, your October period, any adjustment reports that you submit during this window are going to be associated to that receivable.
Incorporated into.
Right.
Okay.
So if you make all negative adjustments and you submit your regular report, paid that in full, and now you have a whole bunch of negative adjustments, you'll have a negative receivable to your negative balance to your October receivable, which then when your November receivable report comes due, and this is kind of what I've heard from our financial office, the November payment must reach its due date. You would have had to underpay what you should have paid for November, and then the day after the report due date is, they will move all credits from prior to offset those balances.
Okay. We'll see
Yes.
how it works.
So you don't get a refund. I know that for a fact. They're not going to cut you a check
Right,
and say, here you
right,
go.
which is good.
So it just has to wait until you've closed your future receivable, the due date has passed, and then they move all credits to that receivable.
We were more concerned about the other. We don't want to have a penalty imposed for not,
No.
doing this adjustment and then say, okay, now you owe us, $400, and if we don't pay it within a certain time frame.
It's just like any other adjustment you would either do today in your regular report, do manually, or through the left-hand process.
Okay. And the other question I had to do with the notifications we're going to get for retirement enrollment adjustments, PEPRA to Classic, Classic to PEPRA. You're going to notify us. We're kind of wondering about a time frame. And then also, okay, if we get a notification that, oh, by the way, that should have been something else, and so we would be looking at making the adjustment for that member for the difference, but if they've separated, are we still going to be liable, say, if it was, from one plan to the other, and we owe money?
So again, this question came up at the Ed Forum, and from what I understand is, I think the notice, Emily, correct me if I'm wrong, employers get it right away. There's a delay of about 10 days to the member, where just in case, you made an appointment correction, but you didn't mean to, so you had to do some other adjustments to it, and we just wait 10 days to notify the member. But once you're notified that the person's appointment went from Classic to PEPRA, you will have to go back retroactively and adjust all the transactions. In most cases, it creates a refund back to the member because it's a higher rate for Classic than PEPRA. They shouldn't have had special compensation reported, so that's a refund, so you would give it back. If a person retires, becomes inactive, or separates, it's on the employer to provide those funds back to, find those people. Now, if the flip happens, and I know as PEPRA rates start to go up, it's going to eventually exceed the Classic rate, and so it could create a balance due. In most cases, the people who work there, you would be able to take it out of their paycheck and pay the liabilities. If the person is no longer there, and we haven't had very many cases of this, but you'll have to notify us, because what we'll have to do is have financial office close your receipt. What I understand the process to be, don't write this down, is that we would have to close the balance due because you're only going to pay the employer share. I doubt you're going to willingly pay the member share. And then we're going to have to work with our financial office to close it, and then our service credit team to create a receivable to bill the member outside of you to pay off those offset. We haven't clearly defined that process yet because we haven't had a lot of those cases come up. Hello, Avina.
Hi.
By the way, she made me an awesome salad.
First one is, can we update the addresses through a file process? Just
Yes.
once? Oh, all the time?
Yes.
Or just once?
Update address details is a transaction type in the retirement
No,
enrollment.
can we send a file of all, I have 800
Yeah,
address corrections.
it's a transaction
Okay.
type.
Okay, thank you. And then the next one is a little bit about that letter. Can we have that PEPRA to Classic one, the letter that you generated, the one you were showing? If we can have the name of the division, it just has a division number, and we always don't remember what district it is, so
Oh,
it
yeah.
will be easier for us.
I'm all the way over here. Wait. Did I go too far back? Yes, I did. Yep. Here's da-da-da-da-da-da. I believe the example I gave you was just a generic
Yeah.
example.
No, that's the one we received, a couple of them.
Right. I don't know. Do we have district listed on this?
No, we do, but I'm asking, can it has a name of the district like Anaheim?
I know. What I'm saying is this is just a template. This could be if you. I have to go back. I think we may already
Tim.
provide.
Hi.
Hey, hello.
Hi. So I do have some notes to make some updates to this letter to get more specific
Okay.
because it is very general and I've noted some comments on that, so that we will be making some updates to have it a little bit more specific, so you know exactly which employer they're talking about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Other thing I wanted to know about this letter is that if there are multiple districts involved, then you send multiple letters. Let's say there is Anaheim and Saddleback, so we will receive 2 letters.
Yes, it should go out for every employer that has switched.
Okay, and then we will also, like she was mentioning, to have an effective date of that activity on it. So it
Okay.
helps because a different date might apply at different districts. And the next one.
Just, that one there, no, it goes back to the appointment begin date. So there's no the appointment starts on January, it's effective March. It goes all the way back to the appointment begin
It
date.
just helps when there is that date.
Okay.
It just helps the districts. And about the reconciliation one, I just wanted to know, sometimes our districts are hesitant to say no payroll when there is a payroll, non-reportable payroll, like they had a overtime position and all. So they don't want to say no payroll.
Well, you're going to get billed on them. That's the truth. So they either have to implement it or they're going to get
Sometimes
billed.
if it can say non-reportable and no payroll.
I would
Because
say
for their purposes, they have a payroll, it's just it was not reportable for PERS.
it is the field itself is non-reportable payroll to CalPERS. So if the earned period is not to be reported to CalPERS, confirm it as non-reportable to CalPERS, regardless if you pay the person outside if it's overtime. Because if you don't select that appointment, and we find that payroll was reported prior to that period, once projection turns on, you will be billed. So just get accustomed to, if the person has no reportable payroll to CalPERS, confirm it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. It's very hard to make it to the list.
Ramona Coker, Stanislaus COE. For those individuals that are changing from Classic to PEPRA, when those adjustment records go through, they're not going to error out, are they, the negatives, because they're not going to calculate out at the correct rate?
I believe they will.
Well,
And I believe what's going to happen, so we don't know how many this is going to impact right now. My genie ball is saying that it's going to be a lot coming up in the next couple of years. It hasn't been a lot currently, but if you have somebody where you receive a letter and you want to do corrections, I believe you have to work with our payroll team to flip something to then allow you to do the negative and then flip it back so you can do the positives.
Yes, you have to have them in the right benefit enrollment level that you're working on. So if they're reflecting Classic and it just switched, you have to switch it back in order to get the payroll reportings out and then flip it back to where it should be. And if you need help with that, you can contact us at Member Elections team, and my team member Sierra is really good about assisting and working with payroll to get everything ironed out to make those corrections.
okay, because as an employer, we can't designate one or the other. The system automatically puts them in the team.
Right, and so she can assist you with correcting what's in the appointment to get them in the right benefit enrollment level to make the corrections, and then getting the information back in that needs to be there to have them in the right level.
Thank you, Heather.
Yeah.
My second question is on the enhancement to the retro reporting. Aside from it airing out if it doesn't have the correct dates, was there something else put in there? Is there something else that it's airing out on? Other than the dates? If the dates are correct, is it still airing out for some reason?
It's the math.
So what is that enhancement?
So, I mean, even if the dates are right, it's the math. So it's basically the difference between what was reported as an earned period and what you're reporting now by the hours that will be defined by the pay period that you're identifying with the begin and end date. If the math doesn't match up and you exceed over, I think, a 5% threshold, it's going to error out.
5%?
I believe don't quote me on that, but I think there's a threshold. I mean, we have it's about
need to know
a
the
threshold.
threshold.
No, you don't need to know the threshold, just do it right.
But depending on calculation.
So I think, it has to do with math, and it's basically, if you know the difference, and we know it's like 160 hours, and 160 hours times 5 times your $5, if you try to report greater than that, then it's still going to error out.
Or less than.
Or, well, I think less than, it might be okay, because this person may not work the whole way. I think it's only greater than.
Okay.
I can get some more information from our payroll team, though. I'm being hooked off the stage. I can see it already, right? You're hooking me off the stage.
No,
Thank
actually,
you.
I'm going to ask you another question.
Oh.
Yeah, don't get too comfortable.
Where are you at? Who?
It was emailed to us from the Ventura County Office of Education, and it says,
Hi.
and it says, how does PERS determine what gets placed on the document history as opposed to what is mailed out? We have times when documents show up on the document history, like the notice of placement on retirement roll, and times when they are not, and we receive them by mail instead.
So that is a good question. I believe we currently have an inventory of about 4,500 different document types that can go out to members and employers. Primarily, the rule of thumb is this, it's going to go out to a defined contact type, and the defined contact type's primary method of communication. In most cases, the person who's going to be notified is the general primary contact. But it's always good nature if you want to ensure you get all documents that you list yourself as multiple contact types. Then that contact type has to define their preferred method of communication. So if your preferred method is email, and you've actually given us an email address, you should be notified, but everything's going to go to doc history regardless. If we go through our triggers, say for example, the arrears invoice goes out, and I know that one specifically goes to an arrears administrator. And if we don't have an arrears administrator defined, it'll go to a general contact. And if the general contact's not defined, then we actually mail out a hard copy. That's the rule of thumb. So you should always have a primary contact with email defined if you want to get an email. Otherwise, there are some documents that we will actually send out by mail. And those, for whatever reason, don't follow the same business rules as the defined method of communication. It's just the way the system was quickly built in 2011 when we had to go through 4,500 different forms.
All right, hold on to that question for one moment, Ramona. Thank you so much, Tim. In the interest of time, we're going to go ahead and move on to our panel discussion. So we have our wonderful subject matter experts in the room. I know many of them are too shy to come up to the front of the room where I've been the whole time, but if you can, just go ahead and make yourselves visible so the folks can see who's asking the questions. We appreciate it. And while that is happening, Ramona, I want you to go ahead and ask your question.
Was there going to be on the document history the ability ever to mark something as addressed? It's really difficult to, when you're looking at something, to know if it's something you've already addressed and viewed versus something new. Tim?
It's a system enhancement we can look into.
For those of you on the webcast, Tim didn't have a microphone. He said it's a system enhancement that we can look into. All right, so to kick it off, I have another question that was emailed to us again from the Ventura County Office of Education. And it says, this was not a topic today, but a situation has occurred, and I'd like to know more. In January of 2018, I was told that the policy on this is that the employee needs to make a decision on a purchase of service credit at least one day before they retire. How will PERS be making sure that the employee knows that they will therefore need to get their initial application in at least 6 months before they are planning on retiring to allow for PERS and the school district to do their reviewing? Thank you.
Okay, so even though I don't oversee SCP, I'm going to answer what I'm pretty sure, like 99% accurate, is correct. So starting in January of 2018, and the statute already says this, we just have not enforced it. The statute requires that prior to someone's retirement, they must elect their service credit purchase. And so we will now be enforcing that piece of statute. So, so they would need to, what had happened, and this was, expanded during the time of when we had released, first released My CalPERS, and as you guys know, My CalPERS was a bumpy road when we first implemented, and there was a lot of work that we had to do to make transactions happen, especially in the service credit purchase space. And so even though the requirement at that time had been relaxed to say that you just had to have it submitted, but that did not align with the statutes. And so now with the changes, enhancements, the maturity and stability of the system, we are now requiring that it must be elected prior to your retirement date.
Thank you, Renee.
Hi, Renee Devi from Fresno County Office of Ed. With this implementation, going to be enforced now, is it going to be a circular coming out, or are the regional offices going to be told? Because I have a lot of people that go to turn in their applications 30 days before retirement, and they're like, hey, do you know that you can get more money? Just take this to your employer. They'll sign it and you'll get it. It doesn't take into account that, sometimes we have to go out to sea trains or in the dungeons, or how long it takes. And it can, right now it's like, oh, as long as it's turned in before the employee retires, you're fine. But now they literally have to select. So how is that going to trickle down, especially to our regional offices that are, people wait till the last minute to do this? Is there going to be any retirement classes coming out to where, when they have these, hey, if you're going to even look at service credit, so that way we're not scrambling?
I'm definitely going to take that back. So I don't know if they had any plans to put out a circular letter, but certainly I know there is some education going on about it. I don't know if it's built into the classes, but those are both items that I will take back. Building it into the classes, having the regional office members, when they do hand them that, informing them that the election is required prior to their retirement date, and then the circular letter. I'll take that all back. Thank you.
This is Carol from Butte College, and along with that, something that Brad, that you mentioned, or I believe, or maybe it was in our legislative updates, about changes coming that will require members with service credit purchases who retire to have those balances paid off within 60 days. Is there going to be changes to the forms or the processes to make that real clear for those employees or those members who wait until just before retirement to know that, okay, we're not just going to extend that for the next 30 years?
So, so the item about having it paid within 60 days of your retirement date is only a proposal. So that is not passed. So no, we will not be creating any educational materials right now on that, because that has not even gone through our board for approval. That will be going forward to our board to provide feedback on next week. And so based on that, and then based on whether it moves forward, and then we would wait until it's actually chaptered.
And then that was expected time, if it's approved, was January of 19?
Correct.
If that's approved.
Correct. So it would be, so once it's chaptered in late summer, early fall, should it go all the way through the process, pass, be signed by the governor, and then chaptered, then we would send out the circular letter and be providing some of that education.
But not bad idea for those of us in the districts to kind of start letting members know that it's a possibility, so don't plan on waiting.
Yeah, and you can watch it yourself. So you're able to, once it comes out, we'll actually have a bill number, assuming that the board approves it, right, and it moves forward in the process. Early in the year, there will be a bill number attached to it. We actually have all of our bills in a agenda item. And so you'd be able to follow that through every month to see where it is, or you could look it up yourself.
And am I correct in understanding that if that goes through, that it would only be effective for those who have service credit purchases initiated as of January? So someone who waits until, August and then elects a 30-month or however long they are, the 180-month option, and then they retire in 6 months, and then this takes effect, they would be more or less grandfathered in because their service credit purchase installment method was elected prior to the implementation?
Correct. You got one over there.
Jamie.
Okay, good.
Sheila Walker, Tama County Office of Ed. I have had 3 employees in the last few months that have retired, and they have worked the day of their retirement, and I've never had this before. So I don't know if something's changed in their paperwork or something to not let them know that, their retirement date, they can't work that day. And I've asked my districts to, be sure and check with the people, and sometimes the people don't let them know that they're retiring even, because we don't get notification until after they've been put on the roll.
That is news to me. I haven't heard of that. I haven't heard, Anthony and I speak together quite often, and I haven't heard that bubbling up from him either, that something's going on. So that is kind of interesting.
Yeah, it was just a little strange.
Yeah, so that's kind of bizarre for you. I mean, a small county to have 3.
Yes.
That's very interesting. We can pass that feedback along to our benefits area and just for education. So if people do their app online, we wouldn't have that opportunity to educate, or if they submit it by mail, we wouldn't have the opportunity to educate. But certainly, if they were to come in and submit their application to a live body, maybe we'd be able to do some education in that space. Okay, she has one.
Kind of piggybacking on what she said, your employee worked the same day that they retired. We have a lot of that going on as well. And what we find, they get so excited, I'm retiring on December 31st. What they don't realize is that's your last day you're working. And maybe in the CalPERS system online, if somebody puts a date in there, maybe have it flag, are you working on that date? So that if it says, yes, I am, then they know, or say you have to, your last day, you can retire any day after your last day in a paid status. Because people just get so excited, they say, I'm retiring. And it's like, no, you're actually retiring the day after. This is your last day of work. So, and we find out after the fact. A long time ago when we had to, at the county offices or at the district, had to sign off on the retirements, we could actually ask that question. And I totally understand the simplification, simplifying it online just to save time and save paper and be more efficient. But the question keeps coming up, and we find a lot of people are overpaid by 1 day, a lot. So that's something that they have to deal with at the district, or we try to educate the districts that you need to ask the question, what day are you telling PERS? Because if you're going to work here, you can retire. Tell them any day after that. So maybe if there's like a little check in the system when they're doing the online applications, maybe that could prevent something like that. Just a thought.
We can take that back. Actually, I thought the retirement app, I'd have to go back to look to double check, but I thought the retirement app actually asked your last day worked and then your retirement date. So it triggered somebody to put 2 different dates. I thought it did. At least I'm pretty confident on that. It does. Okay, so, it should be triggering. They should know if they're filling out the online app that the last day worked is this day, so then I'm retiring this day. So we can check and see, if it would error out, to tell them something different. We can take that back.
I just wanted to add with December 31st, lots of time the problem is it's a paid holiday, and they forget that they should make it clear that I don't want to be getting paid for that holiday.
I would love to get paid for December 31st and not show up. I'm just saying. Like, that'd be awesome.
One thing to
Because-
keep in mind, since we're talking about December 31st, Ross just brought this up to me, is keep in mind, if your retirement date's January 1st, you're pushing your COLA out another
yeah,
year.
and that's the problem.
So the
That's
retirement
why-
date should be December 31st unless there's other
and
factors involved.
Exactly. So 29th should be their last day. And that happens because of the holiday pay. They forget, they're getting the whole month's check.
Right, and just to kind of piggyback on what Brad said, just to drive that point home, yes, I spent many years as a retirement counselor, and that was always a sticking point that we always want to drive home for those of you that have members that are retiring the end of the calendar year. You always want to make sure that their last day on payroll or their separation date is no later than December 30th, so that their official retirement effective date, i.e. they do not work there anymore, is as of December 31st of a given year. So thank you for that. Any more questions? No. All right. So I'm getting the cut it sign from my team member Josh. So a reminder that the 2018 SEAC meetings will be held at the CalPERS campus in the same room as before. I know we've all seen you there in the Lincoln Plaza North building, room 1140. The 2018 schedule is as follows: Wednesday, February 21st, Wednesday, May 2nd, Wednesday, August 8th, and Thursday, November 1st. All of the meetings will be held at CalPERS next year. CalSTRS will go in the morning. CalPERS will host the afternoon session for the calendar year. Another reminder is that the board election runoff ballots will be in the mail this Friday, November 10th. Votes must be received by Monday, December 11th, so please make sure you take the time to vote for the at-large seat, whether by mail, phone, or online. Lastly, our January board offsite will be held Tuesday, January 16th through Thursday, January 18th at the Sheraton in Petaluma, and they're at 745 Baywood Drive. Thank you again for taking your time out of your busy schedules, everybody, to attend this meeting. And Renee's got one more thing to say.
Okay, so one of our team members looked it up, and there is a circular letter on service credit purchases in regards to this, and the number, if anybody wants to take it down, it was issued in September. The number is 200-051-17.
Thank you. Again, thank you for attending today's meeting. Travel safely. We look forward to engaging with you next year. And for those of you on the website, thank you for joining us.